Hi, I am Matt Wilhelmy, and I'm the owner of Strategic Voyages Business Consultants. I'm also the author of Taboo Business Questions, What's Haunting Every Entrepreneur's Growth. And today I'm joined by Mary McKeown-Christie of Maven Marketing Solutions. She's a fractional CMO for mid-cap and enterprise corporations with over 30 years of senior level marketing experience based in Austin, Texas. Mary, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really looking forward to our discussion today for a number of reasons, but most of all, it's to work with another fractional professional. As you've probably learned in the business, there's a lot to do in any business. And so when you're able to, be a fractional support for that bigger company, you're able to kind of be specialized, but also influence a lot of different decisions. And today we were going to talk about this case study of a SaaS company that you've worked with. You've done some really great things with them. Is there any maybe preview, some sneak peek maybe that you can give the audience here for what is in store with this case study today?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So fractional CMOs kind of get a bad rap because businesses have a hard time understanding the value of marketing. They really think about marketing as sales. And ultimately what that means is that marketers are responsible for driving revenue with sales. So the example that we're going to go over today highlights how any business really can do that and focus on revenue marketing and also understand the return on investment that will come to them if they apply their budget in the right areas with accountability, with management. And honestly, the best cocktail is with working really closely with the CFO, because that helps define the return on investment analysis and formula, gets them intimately involved in understanding why marketing needs to spend money.
Yeah, that's always an interesting topic. There's a couple of companies I'm working with right now that they do have a marketing budget, but they honestly couldn't tell you where it's going or if it's working. And it's really frustrating from the CFO seat because I see that expenditure as not being managed well. And if they had somebody like you in their company, right, as the fractional chief marketing officer, that would allow for some maybe strategic oversight to be part of that conversation. So absolutely, I think it's a win-win when the CFO and the CMO are on the same page. So Mary, I'm really interested in connecting today and talking about this case study. Just to kind of lay the groundwork here, not only are we going to talk about this case study, we're also going to dive into some cautionary tales, things that you've seen in your line of work. Don't do this because I've seen it go wrong kind of situations. And then we'll wrap up our time today by kind of going through some solutions and some things that this company, did really well at. And so before we can even get into that, though, let's unpack this company. So we talked about it being a SaaS company. Maybe we should describe what that actually is from maybe just a high level overview. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm pretty sure that a lot of your questions, a lot of your ideas, a lot of your analysis of this business is going to be probably applicable in a lot of different areas, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. So in my experience, because I've been doing this a long time, you get to a point where you really kind of have a template or what I call the secret sauce or the recipe, because you understand ultimately it's basic business 101. And, I'm fortunate that I did get an MBA and I do understand business and I understand global operations management and I understand what the CEO and the CFO care about in order to drive the business and the growth for the business. So I'm able to really quickly get in there and assess who's on first, what's on second. I don't know who's on third. I'm a big Abbott and Costello fan. Just so that we can understand what we're dealing with and then where the gaps are so that we can create a strategic plan and everyone's on the same page for growth. It absolutely does apply across the board for, startups, small businesses, mid-cap, and large enterprise.
Yeah, I think about, the marketing role as really kind of giving some of that strategic advice into that business that should be maybe thought of from a broader perspective, but then just boiled down and applied in that specific situation. So I'm curious how this company kind of came to be. How did they, not maybe how did they find you, but what were some of their initial issues that you noticed when you were getting in there?
Yeah, so this is an example of a mid-cap company that was at 60 million. So they were established. They were have a great story, and the owner was a programmer and developed the software. Sorry, and I should go back and explain SaaS, which is software as a service, which applies to many, many different industries. In this particular case, they were in the real estate, property management, and accounting industry. And he designed the software because he was frustrated as a real estate investor that he had to have two separate softwares to manage his properties. So obviously, first is from a marketing perspective, he's filling a gap. He's designing a need and identifying there's a need in the market, creating a really great user-friendly system for both residential and commercial real estate management, and property management and accounting, which was great. But typically engineers, tech people, they're really brilliant people when it comes to their technology, but they don't have business training, and they certainly don't have marketing training, but everybody seems to think that they can do marketing on their own. This drives me nuts. It's like one of my pet peeves, like, oh, I can do marketing. And then they figure out marketing is a big job. It's like a wheel on a bus, or it's like a bicycle wheel, and there's all these different spokes in it, and there's a ton of work in different areas to be done. So in this case, we're talking about an established company that was going up against pretty large competitors, although their products weren't anywhere near as good, that they were more siloed, but that had brand recognition. And just to give you an example, when I first joined the company, one of the things I had to jump right into was, hey, we have an industry trade show in Vegas, of course, where everybody goes. We need you to go and just check things out, and then come back and give us your assessment. And I went, and I'm not kidding, some of the competitors had these gigantic booths, like the biggest size you can get, all the bells and whistles. They had showgirls in the booth. They had spinning things, rotating over the top of the booth, like every kind of bling bling Elvis cheeseball Vegas show you can come up with. And they didn't have context. They didn't have relationship management going on. People were basically just partying, and okay, great, but I don't like burning money. That's the first thing. And then the company that I was working with had a much smaller booth. It was outdated. The messaging was not on point. So the way that they were presenting themselves to the market wasn't helping. I live by like the 5-second rule. Who's your daddy and what does he do? If you can't answer that question when you're at a trade show where there's booths everywhere, noise, dancing girls. I mean, you're on complete sensory overload, right? Less is more, and focus really tightly on establishing relationships and answering questions, educating, right? So we started off with really a lot of analysis on, tell me where we are on things. What's the relationship with sales? What kind of marketing collateral is available to support the sale? All of these kind of things to lead to those next level of, okay, so let's really talk about a game plan here. And by and large, everyone, interestingly, from the sales side, complained about brand management. So we really they had a really great artistic director on deck, and we sat down and said, listen, we need to grow up here, right? It's time. Let's put our big boy pants on, and then let's really knock it out of the park. And thankfully, they had a great team, and we were able to completely rebrand the look and feel and the positioning of the company, but also focus on relationships on the existing companies and client case studies, et cetera, that were very happy and that could speak to the market. That made a huge dent right away.
Mary, you mentioned this term brand management. I have a feeling I know what that means, but I don't want to guess. Can you give me maybe a couple second definition of what brand management is?
Sure. Sorry, I should have explained. First of all, your logo. What's it look like? What does it say? Does it mean anything? Does it explain anything? Secondly, consider your market. So with who you're speaking to, are the messaging, are the advertisements, and again, this was a while ago, so digital marketing affords a really great opportunity here, but the messages that you're sending out to your target prospective clients, your market, your audience, has to make sense for them. And a lot of marketers tend to forget that you have to have perspective and really put yourself in their shoes and what's going to matter, and cut away all the fluff and get straight to it, and really answer the why and the so what. So for me, brand management means how you position yourself to the world, how the world sees you, how they understand who you are, what you do, what your value is, and do they even want to talk to you? A lot of it is also tone and personality, right? So if you have a very warm and friendly tone in your messaging versus a kind of angry or cranky tone or a pretentious tone, that can dictate a lot as to how your audience is going to engage with you. And in this case, it made an enormous difference because it turned out that the competitors were pretentious and they were not great on relationships. And we were able to be very welcoming and remove barriers by allowing these prospects to ask questions because they just didn't understand, because this kind of solution didn't exist. This was the first one out there that was doing both. And
Yeah,
they
I
were
was
kind
going to
of
say,
just
Mary,
like,
I think when that particular solution, right, the SaaS company that you were talking about and working with, when they have a solution that needs a lot of education in that sales process, that changes the marketer's job a lot, right?
it absolutely does. And you'll see nowadays where content creation is key. And we have so many tools at our disposal to be able to really get that content out there. But several years ago, it was more limiting. But it's super exciting from a marketer's perspective, because once you identify what the problem is and really what they need to understand, it's easy to create a content, what I call it, the content library, the content game plan, the strategy of, okay, here's the topics we're going to talk about. Here's the different ways we're going to present the information, because some people don't want to sit through a video. Some people prefer to read a white paper or just download a brochure to get a better concept, or just spend some time on their website to understand. And by the way, that was the part of the brand management. That meant overhauling the website, overhauling business cards, overhauling marketing collateral, overhauling the trade show booth, getting a new trade show. I mean, it's a big job. And I think a lot of companies don't really understand the depths that it really goes.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that I understand what you've said, because I think some businesses, when they really let somebody in like you were let in, and you start to see all these things that need to be fixed, the dollar signs just keep coming up, right? It's like, oh my gosh, now she told me I need a new logo, I need a new collateral, I need a new website, I need a new billboard, whatever. But you're not trying to do that just to put new tires on a crappy car. You want everything to be working cohesively, right? So when you said brand management, my mind said, well, we need to have a multi-channel cohesion strategy. We need to make sure that it's all the same and it all resonates correctly across social media, trade shows, our website, when somebody calls into the company, when our salespeople are going on sales visits or doing sales presentations in a PowerPoint or what, like, it all needs to be consistent. And if there isn't one person kind of orchestrating all of that, like you would be, I would imagine it's pretty disjointed.
I'm so glad you said that because that is absolutely the case. And I will tell you, there are some marketers that are what I call ivory tower princesses that have never really gotten in there and rolled up their sleeves and really, all right, let's get this show on the road. What are we going to do here? Because you got to be scrappy, right? Because I understand this is going to cost money, but there's really smart ways to do it where it doesn't cost a lot of money. As an example, back in the day, the gig economy didn't really exist, and you didn't have freelancers at your disposal all over the place, right? In every part of the globe. And now you can very easily build out a really great virtual team to help you by project, not necessarily full-time, or it's part-time work that's consistent, because there are all these different areas that need to be addressed. It's a huge effort. And I'll tell you, the last thing too is getting sales on board with let's call it a facelift, right? We're giving it a little bit of a facelift, right? Because salespeople tend to just like to stick with what they know. It's change. They don't like change. Don't make me change anything. And really, I have to make everybody comfortable with, well, so we have to change a few things. It's not a big deal, but here's why. Here's why I want you to understand. And here's what's going to happen if we do this. And so you kind of lay out a plan of, we're going to go to market, boom, like, hey, look at our new spiffy look and feel, right? But it has to make sense. It has to be fun. How's that going to translate to sales? Because we just spent a bunch of money on this, right? So my first goal out of the gate is, yeah, let's get what really needs to get done quickly. And we'll continue to work on this. And it doesn't all have to get done right away, but we can kind of ink our way through this. It's, just step by step and in a reasonable time frame, but including sales in on that and showing them, look, if we include and improve our messaging, perhaps in our emails, in our collateral, and any kind of sales tool that will help educate the client or the prospect, it will exponentially trigger a kind of a landslide of inquiries, opportunities, deeper sales for existing clients, a ton of net new sales. And they're happy. They're like, wow, what happened? Like, yeah, see, it just has to be, to your point, understood about the why and how it's so important to be cohesive, because now all of a sudden there's a new perception in the market and the CEOs are taking their calls. Because, SaaS sales, you're dealing with very high level clients for very large ticket sales, right? So it's a big investment for them, and they have to feel there's a really strong level of trust there.
So Mary, I want to make sure I understand the situation here with this SaaS company. So they met you, they had about 60 million in revenue, but their brand management was all over the place. You already kind of alluded to some different suggestions, but were there any other issues you identified right out of the gate that maybe you can share?
Yep, sure. Firstly, because they were a SaaS tech company, they never really had anybody leading sales with marketing with deep experience. They had somebody that was leading that didn't have that deep bench. And they also had a really great event team. They had a great designers, graphic designers. They had a artistic director that was fabulous. They just never had a game plan or a strategy at all. And everybody was kind of running around in their own little silos. They also had a wonderful training program and an annual training conference. And so right out of the gate, it was getting everybody on the same page and saying, look, this is what we're trying to accomplish. And so we need everybody's involvement to make this happen. And let's come up with a game plan that's not going to kill everybody to make this happen. The other thing that was an issue really was there was not active collaboration and cooperation with sales. They were kind of treated like two different silos, and sales kind of begrudged marketing at that point because they didn't feel like they were getting what they needed from them. So that was the first thing that we addressed was, okay, I want to know everything. I want to know the good, bad, and the good, the bad, the dirty, the everything. I need to know where all the skeletons are. Tell me, so we can solve these problems, right? And to come back to them with, okay, here's the plan. Here's what the calendar looks like for the year. Here's the trade shows. Here's the events. At that time, they were hosting webinars, etc. Here's everything we've identified, and here's what we're going to do, right? But you guys are going to have to be part of that. The last part I would say is a very strong lack of understanding from a management perspective on what marketing does and where the value is. So again, working with the CFO directly and digging in with I'm insistent on a very detailed month-by-month budget. I want to know where every dollar goes. And then I want to know how many leads came in, how many sales opportunities were triggered by that, and how many were won, and how many were lost, and how many are in the queue. And when we start presenting that data, because that's showing that sales is doing their job. My job as the hunter is to go get the qualified leads, and then their job is the skinner because I'm not doing that. So they've got a longer job. They've got a more difficult job, I think. And when we show together, based on the game plan, what's happening, then senior leadership is happy, and they're happy to allocate a percentage of revenue back into the growth of the marketing so that we can do even more.
I think it makes a lot of sense, Mary. I do want to make sure that we adequately tease our viewers. Mary and I are going to also talk about some cautionary tales. I think, especially when you've been in the industry for as long as Mary's been, and certainly I've got some different ideas and how this conversation might go. There's always ways that people can mess up their business and take advice wrong or implement things incorrectly, or maybe they want to save a few bucks and so they don't listen to our advice and they try and do it on their own. So in our next episode, we're going to talk about some of those cautionary tales. And then in our final episode, in our final time together, Mary, we're going to go through some strategies for success. We're going to talk about some solutions that you recommended that worked, and really kind of better understand what that looks like. So thanks again, Mary, for your time on this episode. I can't wait to reconnect for our cautionary tales.
Thank you.